somebody could give a sign that I am now connected to you or not, because lady says me that I am disconnected. Okay, great. We see you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's great. Okay. Then I continue. So during 20 years, the technology and the industry has changed completely. Now we have nearly real-time connection. We have professional technologies for many purposes and knowledge of how to drive people's attention on these interfaces. The last 4 months, the world has completely changed by coronavirus. That change was faster than the first iPhone or the Pokemon Go did. And today we face this new situation from the point of view of UX. I'm glad that you could join our webinar for coronavirus impact on the UX industry. It's part of the series of product design talks by Ergomania Digital Product Design, a member of Holland FinTech Belgium, with over 20 years experience of UX. We hope in the next hour on this afternoon, you will get some useful information, some inspiration, and of course, UX knowledge. Today, we have 2 special programs for you. Kicking off with a presentation on the coronavirus impact on the UX industry, and following a panel discussion with 5 experienced UX leaders in Europe from 4 countries. Kathleen from Belgium, Edward from the UK, Hannes from Austria, and Thomas and András from Hungary. I'm wondering if they will agree on everything. We'll see. We are curious about your opinion as well. We want today's event to be interactive. We will have a few polls during the webinar. Please use the chat rooms and the Q&A section as well. You can use the LinkedIn chat room to introduce yourself, meet with other participants, and do some networking, and use the public chat room for just about anything else. If you have any questions from the presentation or the panel discussion, please write them into the Q&A section. We will pick the most popular questions and discuss them during the panel discussion. So don't hold back. Here is the chance to get an answer from our UX experts. We also invite you to stay after the webinar for an informal networking session on our UTribe channel. I will tell you more about that. And now, please give a virtual round applause for Andras Rung, founder and CEO of Ergomania.
Okay. Arthur, do you see the presentation?
Great. I see you, Andras, now.
Okay, so you see the presentation as well.
Yes, it's loading.
Okay, so I'm starting. So thank you very much, Arthur, for the introduction.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going. So as you mentioned, I'm going to talk about the impact of COVID-19 on the UX industry. This is still a hot topic, and it's likely to stay hot for a while. Many changes are affecting people nowadays, and it's not the CEOs or the head of the innovation who are driving digital transformation around the globe. We know this, it's COVID-19 at the moment. The dominance of the home office applies to all types of teams, not just to UX folks. Every other webinar you will visit will have smart observation and advice about the COVID era changes, but it's something we could talk about for hours, but we won't here on this webinar because we are going to talk about something different. The changes that specifically affect the UX industry. As users are changing rapidly, we need a more innovative approach in UX. Relying heavily on best practices or debating whether voice will have a space in the future is for kind of old-fashioned UX guy. We have to be bolder than we have been in the recent years, as bold as we were back in the good old days, like 20 years ago. Being more innovative means that we have to better exploit what the technology is offering for us. UXers should know what they can do now and not rely on just solutions that worked 5 years ago. Design systems also will enable the rapid construction of new interfaces to meet the growing demand for new solutions. While their value will grow, we will need fewer designers just mindlessly putting together hundreds of screens. Since we will need more and more digital solutions to serve people, at least in an okay way, we will need to increase the production of quality interfaces. International teams should collaborate more effectively. The standardization of processes will be a must to achieve overarching digital solutions. And the way we do UX in Hungary, Austria, Belgium, or in the UK will be more similar probably. Every professional UX team has a framework that consists of similar steps. They use common tools as well. Some of the tools have been replaced due to the current situation, and some of the well-known steps needs to be revised as well, particularly those that previously required a face-to-face interaction. Workshops are essential in the discovery and design phases of UX projects. The big whiteboards that united clients, product people, and the UX professional have been replaced by tools like Miro or Whimsical. Both these tools are not just replacement, they have benefits as well. So yes, like a smooth online workshop needs more preparation, but documentation and quick co-creation got much easier. Testing also has moved to the online space. Pre-COVID, the main concern was that the users had to download some unknown software and they needed to learn how to share their screens. Now we can do this in even our sleep. Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Hangouts are second nature. Remote research has multiple benefits as well. Since users cannot travel, it's easier to find a slot in their calendar for 1 hour meeting. Even lunchtime works better for testing, and busy people get more accessible for research. Remote testing has also the advantage that users are more relaxed. They can use their own computer, and you might see their own environment, and it's kind of little ethnographical research. Rewarding users, on the other hand, got a bit more complicated, since the typical gifts were no longer an option, so you can't give like a bottle of wine or something like this to them. Guerrilla testing might suffer though, since people will be less willing to sit down with strangers and touch the screens of an unknown mobile phone or somebody else's keyboard. In the case of some tools, the speed of adoption has accelerated, like remember Sketch how dethroned Photoshop in the recent years, and something similar might happen with Figma as well, which is gaining ground. It was quite handy in the recent months with its sophisticated collaboration features that enable remote teams to work together fast. Of course, Sketch has abstract too, but it's not very easy to use as it was with Figma. We see also mobile ethnography as an umbrella term, remote ethnographic research method that encapsulates multiple research methodologies like diary studies, experience design research, shopper insight, etc., all via the participant's mobile phone. Though we emphasize that UX is an empathetic profession, we often leave elderly people out of the picture. Very few companies provide tailored and adaptive interfaces for senior citizens. One of the few solutions was introduced by OTP Bank in Hungary. It provides restricted internet banking for elderly people who can log in, check their balance and transaction history, but cannot initiate any transaction. This made them feel safe. They couldn't make a mistake. Our attitude has to change towards them. Due to COVID-19, we have a lot of online newbies from the older generation. We can't neglect them anymore because a lot of them have been through or forced digital transformation and were cut off from normal life for a while. Think of your parents or grandparents. They need much more guidance, hints, reassurance. On the other hand, they read more carefully. So if you use proper UX writing, instructions will work for them. They have much longer attention spans than younger people, so long form text and deep content are okay for them as long as they don't have to divide their attention. So don't divide screens into multiple actions. One focus at a time will have better results. In some cases, dramatic simplification is needed. Pay attention to bigger contrast, font sizes. These are kind of obvious requirements, but we often forget about them. That also we forget about that elderly might have motor problems as well. So clicking on small objects or interacting with them might be an issue for them. Short-term memory and episodic memory are particularly vulnerable for elderly people. So when possible, introduce product features gradually over time instead of all at once. And don't forget to provide reminders and alerts as cues for habitual actions. Throughout the research process, the UX expert needs to ask customers basic and naive questions. The UX process needs to start from a blank page that comes from eliminating earlier assumptions. For example, what you think you know about how your customer has been impacted by COVID-19 might not be the whole picture. Coming into user research and interviews with convictions and assumptions will cloud the designer's vision and keep you from clearly seeing the reality, what is happening with your users. And we must learn about these changes that altered their behavior caused by COVID-19. Using touch might seem be convenient in most of the situation, but in reality, it's just only more convenient than to use a keyboard or mouse. While using touch must be close to the manipulated object. We need to be in contact with the surface, which cleanliness in question, and we need to exercise some force to make change in the digital world. With intelligent AI solutions, sensors, and voice, we can avoid all of this. When we drive into the parking lot, the system might recognize our license plate, open the gate, and deduct the cost when we are leaving. With voice, we can manipulate elevators, doors, and machines without the need to get too close to them and touch them. These features will be in heavy demand in the future. So a lot of changes are coming that might impact the UX industry, as also the way how we conduct UX work. But will UX be more popular? Jacob Nielsen estimates that like the number of UXers is around like 2 million. When we started, it was just mere 1,000. In my country, I don't think that there were more than 5 people when I started. And one of the biggest changes will be, I think, that like governments will realize the importance of UX. This is already happening in a few countries like UK, and the horrible interfaces that state entities they have will disappear step by step, because with this quality, what they are having at the moment, it's impossible to run a state online. Since the user base of standard websites and application will be more variable, we will need more adaptable solution, not just for the elderly people. And the popularity of personalization will increase. But not all the apps can handle variations, so niche apps will emerge with the highest speed for the underserved but profitable segment. Though we have 2 million UXers, there will be a jump in their numbers, I think, and new wave of digital projects will demand more experts. People with the right mindset, but without the right job, like engineers, marketing firms, etc., will jump on the UX train. That got suddenly some new carriages. But obviously, as more people get digital, we need more and more complex systems with more channels like voice. And thanks to AI, these systems will be smarter too. UX became a team sport in the recent years, but complex project needs bigger teams that can't be run without leaders with a strategical approach. And thank you very much for your attention. So I give back the word to Arthur. Just checking meanwhile that like whether we got some questions, but so far nothing. Okay, we got meanwhile a question or two actually. That we have a question from Alex about voice elevators. That how do we make them more accessible and account for differences in voice or speech differences like accents? Like at the moment, I think it's a kind of challenge. Probably many of you know this famous video when Scottish guys they are struggling in the elevator. It's around like I don't know like almost 10 years old, and it's still an issue. So it's not very easy to recognize accents, but actually these systems, they got much better. So for example, we as like in Hungary, we are using several times English interfaces, and like our accent and pronunciation is not perfect. So it's not important that they would recognize that like we speak English with a Hungarian accent, but it would recognize that what we are telling to the machine. And these interfaces, they got much better to handle different accent and even non-native speakers. And funny thing that sometimes we recognize that like some people who didn't have like a very perfect English pronunciation, they try to speak nicer with the devices, or they try to force themselves to have a better accent that the machine would understand them. But of course, these interfaces need a lot of testing, so you can just run them when they work like 95% okay, and you give some fallback options at the moment until they don't work very well. So I hope, Alex, that I answered your question. So there is a question about that, like, do people recommend Figma and Sketch over XD? I prefer XD because of Photoshop and After Effects. It's easier to prototype to video. Yeah, it's very hard to know, like, in the agencies, what I know, like, almost everybody is using like Figma and Sketch, and there is a big debate, like, which one is easier to use. We have less experience with XD, actually, and we are switching towards Figma mostly because of these collaborational features. Plus that like it could be used in some situation in corporate environments when Macs are not that common like Windows computers. But like both of them are totally applicable to create good designs with them. So it's more like a matter of taste and how much collaboration is important for you. So I see that like Alex was satisfied with the answer, but I don't see more questions. So I think if you don't have more questions, we can move on. Oh, we got one more question. Is there any significant disadvantages of current sustained remote work in UX? I think the disadvantages is like usually in that like mostly methods when you really have to establish trust. So in those situations it's important. So for example, research, as I was mentioning, that I think it's relatively easy to done remotely, but it's harder with those people when you have to build more like connections. So for example, if you do research with people who are in very different culture than yours, probably like personal connection is still much stronger. So I think this is one thing. And also like usually when new projects are starting, it's good to establish trust. And there are some methods that needs a lot of physical interaction. For example, you can do remote Lego Serious Play, but for example, Lego Serious Play, it's quite complex to do online. or design studio is not very easy. Okay. We have one question from Mass. What do you think the impact of Corona is? Okay. What do you think the impact of Corona is on the role of UX design research agencies? Do you think companies will hire a new person or are more likely to make use of external expertise from agencies in these uncertain times? I think they will try to do like kind of mixed approach. So obviously, like hiring new people seems the easiest solution, but like what I was mentioning, that like very probably we will have more complex projects than before. So it's not very easy to hire like people with strategic approach. So obviously they will hire some junior, mediocre people quite quick if they can, but I think the agencies will have like a bigger workload also in the upcoming times. And basically, I think we have all the questions answered, if there is not more.
Okay. So maybe we can start our panel discussion, if you hear me, Andras.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Some problem is with my connection. That's why I turned off my cam. So let me introduce to you our panelists. Kathleen van den Keibus, founder, UX strategist at UFlow in Belgium. Edward Croft-Baker, managing partner at the UX agency in the UK. Thomas Fogarashi, managing partner at Excelled Interactive in Hungary. Hannes Robir, chair at World Usability Congress. CEO at USP in Austria. And Andras will be facilitating the discussion. If you have any questions, please ask them in the QA section, and we will ask the most upvoted questions from the panelists. I give the word back to you, Andras.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm just still waiting for Edward to get connected. Thomas is arriving also. So greetings to everybody. So first of all, thank you for all to join today. This panel discussion, it's a big honor that like I have the chance to talk with such experienced and nice people in the same time. And I would ask you, all of you, just like to say like 2-3 sentences about yourself, that like who you are, what your agency is doing or specialize, or where are you from, and afterwards we can start the conversation. So maybe we should start with Kathleen as the lady. Don't know whether she's happy with this choice at the moment.
It's okay, thank you. So I'm Kathleen. I own a UX company called UFlow in Antwerp, Belgium. We've been around for 4 years now and focus mainly on digital product design and user research. We have a broad range of clients, startups and corporate enterprises, with both a variety of end users, from B2C to B2B. And yeah, we apply a user-centered and evidence-based approach to all our projects. Okay, is that enough? 3 sentences?
Okay, anyway, it doesn't matter.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much. Edward?
Hi there, I'm Edward. I run a company called the UX Agency. It does what it says it does, very similar to Kathleen. My personal background is I started out working for Apple in 1998. Then I worked for some large London agencies where UX was starting to evolve in the sort of near 2000. And then I went to venture capital and then on to setting up the UX Agency in 2008. Actually, I work with my wife and my partner in business and life, and you know, we have clients like Amazon, Royal Mail, and Domino's.
Okay. Thank you very much, Thomas.
Okay. Yeah,
you
thank
take
you.
The word.
Yeah, so I'm Thomas. I'm running Exalt Interactive, which was co-founded by me and my partner. We are currently 20 people. Basically, it's mostly UX agency kind of work, but we also tend to lean into service design, and we describe ourselves sometimes as a design consultancy, and we do a lot of innovation related projects, research projects on innovation. So we are bouncing between service design and UX constantly. And also in my free time, I'm also leading the local group of IXDA in Budapest. And we also have a service design conference yearly, which was delayed because of the COVID-19, unfortunately, which is doers. It's a 500 people service design conference. Hopefully we will be able to do that next year or later this year.
Okay, and thank you very much. And last but not least, Hannes.
Hi, my name is Hannes. I founded USB in Graz, Austria, also an UX agency. But more important, I think more interesting, I also teach it for UX technical documentation, UX management, UX innovation at the University in Vienna and at the University in Graz. And I founded the World Disability Congress, which started in 2007. And the big COVID change is that we will do it this year online, 5 days, 8 hours, UX and custom experience topics around the clock.
Okay, thank you very much. So after the introduction, let's jump into the questions. And our first topic to discuss that, you think that the possibility of accelerated digital transformation will boost UX also. So what do you think about that? Who starts?
I'll go first. Yeah.
You can go first.
Yeah. So it's interesting about how it boosts this digital transformation. For me, digital transformation's been boosted and has failed, I'd say, because 80% of all digital transformation ends up with little or no benefit to the business. I think what this will do will help people to focus on what the real problems are and focusing on outcomes, what makes a real difference. The biggest thing for me is that COVID-19 has allowed people to take some risk, essentially, because there's no alternative. The average CEO, certainly in the UK, I don't know about Europe, has a tenure of about 5 years. And on the whole, it's mostly business as usual, keep the lights on, don't bugger it up more than the person who was before him, and maybe make one change. Whereas now, all bets are off. It's kind of like, how the hell can I pivot, change, whatever it is, make sure I do it fast and make sure I don't get it wrong. So I get it wrong, I've really screwed it up. A lot of people have, jobs and lives are on the line kind of thing. So I think for me, digital transformation will accelerate, but not what I class as it. It's more about, helping them actually change their businesses rather than just electrify what they already do, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay.
Some other ideas or opinions about this? Agreeing, disagreeing?
I totally agree with Edward.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're
okay.
welcome. Thomas, your turn.
Yeah, I just wanted to agree with Edward about the political situation within large companies. We also work with large companies, and we see the exact same thing. People have mandates, and they are very afraid of not succeeding with these projects. But we do see that these projects are also accelerating, it can be a good thing because we need to spend more resources as an agency on certain projects, so we are able to sell more people on certain projects. But we also see the pressure inside these large companies, and also see the political, sometimes backlash, sometimes just struggle between deadlines and money and resources.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I fully agree.
Thank you. Of course, I agree to all others, but in my opinion, I'm mostly working in business to business and with big industries, and we don't talk about digitalization. We talk about starting thinking about what can we do with digital things, and we are really at the beginning in a lot of different big industries. But But what COVID is changing in our minds is that we can think about to be more creative, to rethink processes, and that people right now start to think outside the box a little bit more than before. Before it was only we talk about digital transformation, but no one knows what it really is. And now they really start to, hey, there is a bigger change, and we also can change our process a little bit more than we thought before.
Yeah. I agree. I fully agree. And I think more digital also means the need for more qualitative digital products. So our clients are now realizing how important the work that we do is. I do believe UX will get a boost, and it should get a boost, because today we also see that budgets, like Thomas mentioned, are cut everywhere in every sector. So working smarter and working leaner is becoming a necessity. And yeah, we all rely on digital products to do our job. So efficiency and productivity will become extremely important, and we facilitate that through good user experience.
Yeah, I also agree with you. Like what we see also, like what is a bit different, that like we see two type of approach, at least in Hungary, that like there is one approach that like people, they start to be more innovative and more radical, as you described. And also we see at some clients that kind of approach that let's be digital super quick, and we don't have time for this UX and all of this artistic whatever, just like to push the project as fast as possible, because like they were offline and they want to give just some online experience to the people. Thanks God, this is the minority of the approaches, but we see also that like sometimes clients, they find that like UX can make the project slower, what is not true, but like they experience several times that or think about that it might be true. And since they don't have experience, they think that like if I add one extra profession, obviously it makes the process longer.
That's right. I just chime on that, saying that a lot of the time, every client we come across thinks they know their user. And in COVID times, I think they've realized we haven't got a clue what's going on. So therefore UX is more important at the moment, because although 4 months ago, they still didn't know their user, because whenever you do research, you always find out who your user is or how your business behaves. And so I think UX will definitely be more important, because they feel they don't know at the moment, whereas they didn't know before. And what I think I'd really like to change when it comes to digital transformation is to be less output focused. Like, we've delivered a CRM system, tick, well done, everybody, great work. But in actual fact, it should be more outcomes focused. And that's what UX is all about, is solving the problems. How do we make the difference, not just deliver a system, you know what I mean? Because just because you've got a system. Yeah, so.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, cool.
Okay. Anything more to add to this topic, somebody? Okay. And like as I was talking also about that, like COVID was teaching us a lot of things. Probably like we ourselves realized some stuff what we might know before, but it was not that clear. But what is the most important thing that COVID-19 taught to you? So what is the main learning of the last 3 months for you about your profession, UX in general, or?
So
starting first.
Hands up, if I'm allowed to talk. The most important learning was that we can do a lot of things without going to the client. We did it before because we have some big clients where we work together on Miro, with XD, with Figma, and so on and so on. But for me, it was not that clear that it can be normal. Of course, there's the big challenge if we need to observe people. That's not that easy. But right now, we do a lot of interviews only remote. And that's also really a good experience for the client and for us. But to go to a fabric, to a factory, and to observe processes, that's not that possible like before. And this is still a really important thing in research. But at the end, my most important thing is I don't have to drive or to fly to our clients every time. That's it.
And one question that like it's important because you feel that like you are saving time with that.
I'm saving time. I traveled really a lot.
Okay. So like you mean that like you can focus more on more important things, just like catching your plane.
And I will ask the customer, the client, hey, let's do it on a call. That's it. We don't need to meet every time.
And do you think that like it will affect, for example, what it's interesting for clients, the pricing of projects also? So like the same quality will be more affordable for people, or?
Of course, yeah. They don't have to pay the time when I'm driving, or also, yeah.
Okay.
It's also easier for me to check how much time I will be in. An interview time is an interview time. We don't think about how long do I drive to the interview and back. So we did some research where we fly to Amsterdam or to the north to UK for 1 or 2 interviews.
Yeah, it's quite time consuming.
Yeah, it does come back to your point about how what are the long-term effects of being in lockdown or whatever. That kind of contextual side of things that you kind of miss a bit. Doing online is good and is you know, probably 80% there, but it's always nice to have a bit of context, you know, so like see how people, you know, are, you know, in their house or, you know, wherever it may be. Yeah, so it's that's the only downside of it. Otherwise, I think there's a hell of a lot of benefits to the new way of working, to be honest. It's just the fact that the client needed to be pushed to realize it's okay to work like this. So, you know, with their own employees as well as with their agencies, you know, people still will work. You can trust us. You know, it still gets done. And also, I mean, what I think the biggest learning for me is to learn that everyone is human. I mean, look at us all. Look at all our houses. You know, our children come in. My mum turned up on a web conference call with a client the other day because she was logging in to try and help my son do some homework. And it just has made everyone realize we're not just wankers. You know, we're like, you know, human beings just trying to get through and do the best we can. So I think that's probably one of my biggest learnings, I think, from the COVID experience.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, we did have one challenge. I'm curious if you had the same experience with it. I totally agree with the dynamic with working with clients, and we also experienced that, yes, working from home is very effective because you're in kind of a flow and nobody's disturbing you. We also got back to the client and have these not so long meetings done remotely right now, and hopefully that will stay as well. So this is very short meetings will stay online, but we had the difficulty of conducting interviews with personas or target groups that we have defined with the client. And one of the experience we had is I really felt like we are in a bubble, that we are in the Silicon Valley kind of bubble of dealing with technology and software and tools, and we experienced a lot of people who are very even the people who we thought they will be tech savvy, and we had the profile of someone who is tech savvy for an interview. We had this issue of people not able to set up the Zoom application, find the microphone icon, and all these kind of little things took us at least 20 minutes sometimes for some users to set up, and this was really, really shocking for us, actually. Okay, we are truly living in a bubble in a way. So I think that some of our users are right now currently, if we have a remote setting, basically unreachable, and some of them are very struggling with this current situation. And so this online ethnography, what Andras said in the intro talk, is not that easy sometimes for us.
It's not easy, but
what's your opinion?
And you don't feel any kind of change? So like it's not easier in June than it was in March?
Oh, it's definitely easier, yes, but I think overall it's still so. You know, my mother is still struggling with the iPhone unlocking screen, but she has an iPhone for, I don't know, 6 years now. So some things won't go away that fast. So we still kind of see these situations.
Yeah, and I want to add to that I understand that doing a lot of activities we do remote is much more efficient, like usability testing, stuff like that. But user research, as you mentioned, a lot of users are not even able to actually set up a Zoom. So it's important for us not to only focus on the users we can get through remote access. One of the main learnings I experienced during this pandemic is that the importance of user research and the importance of context and all the nuances. I did some interviews with Zoom, and it's not the same, you know, when you're doing a user interview and you just go from there to there and you pick up a lot of stuff. It's lost. And yeah, that's something that I want to keep reminding myself, that first of all, not everybody is actually able to connect to our Zoom invitations. And yeah, the second part is that the nuances, it's important for us as user researchers to keep them in mind and be alert of them.
And for example, Kathleen, like you are also like a League of Serious Play expert. So did you have the chance to do anything remotely with that, or did you try? Or is this, for example, something offline forever?
I'm going to be very honest here. We did not try this online. Of course, we did workshops online, design thinking workshops and facilitation. So we use tools like Miro to set everything up. And Lego, we did not try that, no.
Yeah, because like, for example, sorry, just go on.
No, we have to take into account that we as an agency went through a transformation, like the cultural change because of this pandemic. The impact on the internal team was already huge. The impact on the client's team was also very big. Like they had to restructure the way they work as well. They had to change processes and stuff like that. So to be honest, I didn't find the opportunity to actually say to a client, like, okay, let's do this. Let's try use some remote workshop, because everybody remote Lego workshop, sorry, because everybody was busy with getting their own shit together.
Yes. Okay.
I don't know what your experience was on that.
No, like
the Lego.
We try to convince one client to do it online, because like you can send the Lego packages to the individual persons to their home. So actually it's possible. You just can't build a common model, but at the end we couldn't convince them. So they didn't trust the system they really wanted to. But I think this is what I say, that it's about trust. So probably if you would work with that client for 5 years, it would be easier to convince them. But it was just a project start, and they even just heard about UX 2 weeks ago. So it was a bit too much for them.
Yeah. Did you try SAP Seeds before? Did any of you try that? I know it's not the serious play kind of a complexity, but SAP actually has this kit of pre-made buildings, characters, devices, vehicles, everything that you can simply download and print for yourself. Now, before the COVID, it was a storyboarding tool for having these workshops offline. But right now, we had one occasion where we used that for creating storyboards with the client or with the teams, and they were very much enjoying it. So you can download that. I think it's in PDF, and you have basically a lot of small characters pre-made for you. So you can set up scenes and walkthroughs with that. So that was, or at least workaround for not having these offline workshops anymore. I can probably link it in the chat
something
somewhere.
at home, but we can show like a little ethnography at you as well. So like your home kit. So anybody try this method, or It's just Thomas' secret.
Of course, we tried something, also a lot of online things, but at the end, we have a lot of clients, and I'm also convinced that the offline usability testing, offline workshops where you're one-to-one are working better, I would say, because you really have the emotion in, and people are more likely to tell more about themselves and going more out of them than in an online session. So we prefer the offline sessions.
And for example, with the online methods, did you experience also some kind of improvement? So for example, like we sometimes feel that like things are getting more smooth or smoother like than they were in March and now, or what's your experience regarding that?
In the online sessions, you're faster, of course, because you don't start to chat together. You focus on your tasks, and yeah, you're more focused, I would say, because our online sessions are not 6 hours or not 4 hours. We divide it in small slices, and then this time 1 hour are really efficient at the end.
And for example, like in these online sessions, like in online workshops, like sometimes like there are some conflicts with clients or disagreement. And how do you feel that it's much harder to resolve those disagreements or conflicts, or you didn't experience any kind of disturbances during the workshops? So like what's your experience regarding that? So everything is smooth and nice, quick and clean, or
in fact, I'm honest, we're doing these online workshops and online tours only with our long-term clients right now, and there everything is running smooth because we know each other and we know what someone means when someone is doing something. So no problems at the moment in online workshops.
Yeah, because like we experienced also that like it's quite smooth, but like we have seen some surprises also that like what you don't experience in life. So like more misunderstanding or a bit more impatient behavior. Sometimes it happens.
Yeah, of course we have afterwards and before a lot of telcos to clarify and to set up things. But we're really in contact with our clients the whole time. So not only in the sessions, so of course afterwards and before. Maybe we will have our solutions in the discussions one-to-one. I don't know. But at the end, directly in the workshops, there are no problems. That's my experience at the moment.
Okay. And for example, when we are talking about that, like what COVID-19 taught us, like what... Oh, Edward is talking?
My microphone delayed.
Yeah, there is some delay, or at least for me.
Yeah. Carry on. It's going to be turnover.
No, actually, it got better now. So when you gave up, it got resolved. So try again, please.
Okay, maybe on the workshop, you can hear me. I think sometimes focus. So you see people looking out the window. Camera off. We always say that silence doesn't necessarily mean you agree. Essentially, so definitely has their inputs, because even though people say that Zoom is like the revolution for the introvert, so that people who wouldn't normally feel confident in that, there's also people who have confidence on a Zoom call or to their view. We always try and keep everyone's camera on, and also keep it into short bursts rather than like this. and also don't assume silence means that they agree. So always make sure you go around the virtual room.
Okay.
Okay.
And for example, like we're talking about that, like cooperation with the clients. What do you think that, like, what the clients should learn from this period? Like they should stay the same, or they already have changed, or they need to change based on the last period, and not just that like, okay, they should be more digital, or they have to hire more UX people. So probably it's not that only one conclusion of the period. What do you think about that?
Can I start?
Of course.
Yeah. I think it's not necessarily related to UX in general. It's related to how they utilize design and what we can offer for them. So one example that we had in this COVID situation is that we had a lot of MVPs coming out on a daily basis, really small players launching some kind of delivery service or an application made in 2 weeks. I think everyone has seen these kind of examples that quickly responded to something, a very important problem, if you will. So these were very good examples of how a problem arises and you just act on it. And I think that this build fast, regret later approach, build an MVP and just validate it and do the research, not just before but after, is a very different approach that normally big companies or big clients of us have, because most of our digitalization projects right now are like 1 year long. We are very closed down, very secretive. Everything is under NDA. Nothing is really released, but we have to wait like 6 months before the first real tests with sometimes with developed applications and users. So I think everything should be, so there's a lesson in it, and we have to, and large companies have to adapt to it and maybe be more brave in trying new innovative services and just building prototypes fast enough. Maybe design sprints will be more famous or more used after this, or probably remotely. So this is something I really hope to see, that the approach to UX and the approach to design will change.
Okay. And you see this as like a very positive move and change?
Yes, I think that large clients are often challenged by small startups, right? So every industry has their small startups, challenging these large companies already established, and mostly they react. In my opinion, they always react too slow. This is nothing new, of course. Everyone has those kind of clients, but when you see, applications developed in 2 weeks and addressing problems, which we have really we have seen this in the last few months, that really sets an example for these clients as well, I think.
Okay.
But I think that UX and design is more important, and that we are going faster with design sprints and so on. I see it at my students, and that our students are coming from different areas, and that much more students want to study UX. I think we're in a time where UX is increasing, and also through the startups scene, because our younger startup guys and girls are using UX as typical startup methodology, and they're including really fast sprinting. So I think all that design thinking, that fast thinking is running into our heads so far. So COVID is only it happens, but everything is going fast and UX is increasing. So I don't think that COVID is, maybe it's running a little bit faster, but at the end it started before COVID. This
you mean that,
thinking
like,
of being.
you mean that like exactly the same things are happening than before? It just got a boost.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe
Sorry
it's a
for
little bit,
that.
I don't know. Maybe it's slower. I don't know.
Arthur, you are on mute.
Okay.
Okay, now. So sorry for that. The time is over. So I suggest a last round.
Yeah, let's check like what kind of questions we have, and let's pick one or two of them that from the audience also, and I think afterwards, like everybody has like a short round, a kind of final thought, like message to the audience from different countries that like what we see. So like one popular question is from, I think, what relates to but some of them are already covered, I think. Okay, I'm just checking that like most of the questions we covered meanwhile. Yeah, I think we covered most of these topics. There is just like one last question. What I'm seeing that like we didn't touch is about that like whether COVID opens more positions in freelance UX design. So like all of you are from agencies, and what do you think that like whether like individuals?
Yeah, I've got an answer. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Go
So
on.
we were lucky enough to win a few big projects during the COVID lockdown. And when previous to COVID, I think there were 6 jobs for every 1 UXer, and at the very start, that changed to 38 candidates for every 1 job. So it really completely switched around. But in the last month or so, we're finding that's changing again. So there's definitely more jobs out there than there have been. Clients are now sort of getting a handle on, they've stopped the panic and they're seeing what they need to do to get done. Whether or not it's defined freelance versus contract would be my
Okay.
my point. Because freelance is, I work a bit for one client, I do a bit of, day to day I do this, but I'd say there's probably more probability that contract will be okay. But in the UK, there was something called IR35, which is a regulation to try and get people to not be long-term contractors. But that's been put off for the next 2 years. So I would have thought, contract is still here and still strong, and there's always a way around it. But freelance jobs might be harder to come by, perhaps, because I would have thought.
Okay. Some other opinion about this?
Also in Austria, I would say the contract is more relevant or more important also for me. And for the job area, the only thing I know is that companies in Salzburg, in Vienna, in Graz are searching for UX guys, of UX people, and they don't find any. So if you need jobs, I know a lot of companies who are searching for internal UX people.
Yeah. The one thing I'd say about that is I find the companies think that just by employing a UXer is like job done. We're now UX, and all too often we sort of come across that, and they don't know who's a good UXer, and they don't know how the process. I mean, UX is a process. It sort of like starts with research and ends up in output, the UI or whatever it may be, and it's cultural change in an organization as well. It's not as easy as just. And all too often they think, I've heard about this UX thing. Go and get a UXer, and then a year later, they've got design patterns, but nothing of any use. So.
That you're fully right, but in my point of view, I see that it's a really huge step for a company which have no UX guys, people to start employing one, and if they have one year later, they see that these people has too much to work and they need more, because in UX you can do in process design, service design, digital design. You will get much more to do than you should do at the beginning. So the need of UX will is increasing internally, and that's for me the best thing to convince the management that UX is important. They have to start having employees.
Yeah. Again, what annoys me about UX in UX teams of one is that often it's UX/UI, and the senior management just see UX as just pretty pictures, and it's like, where are your pretty pictures? Why is my business getting better because of your pretty pictures? And that really annoys me.
Where are the screens?
Yeah,
it's a long discussion.
Hence to go back to my original point of trying to make our clients understand outcomes over outputs. So, we've changed the dial on your business. We've increased leads or whatever it is. We haven't just delivered you a block. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So that's really important.
Kathleen, in Belgium, do you think what will happen?
In Belgium, we see now that a lot of budgets are being cut. So the first ones to go are the contractors. So internal staff in agencies, in my experience right now, is that we're pretty on a steady basis with our clients, but they are now in the hurry of cutting budgets here and there, and sometimes it's the freelance contracts that go first. So that's what we see. But
yeah, I think that's down to the type of client. Some of our clients have just shut down and kind of gone into panic. Other clients are thinking more like through the cycle and thinking like, what's on the other side? How do we get ready for at the end? How do we? This has uncovered that our business model is broken. Let's fix ourselves. So it does depend on the client a bit. Some industries have, like Expedia is one of our clients, and they've obviously travel's just gone. So they can't do anything particularly, but they're still getting ready for what happens in the future. But it just depends on client, really. Sometimes they're short-sighted.
In Belgium, they're always a bit slower on reacting to those things. A bit behind.
I think there is a possibility for us. There is a chance to, as agencies, to use this kind of situation. So there are a lot of UX people around the planet trying to work. I think I get the notion behind this question. So the world has got smaller in a sense that you can reach out to more people. Like we have this conversation right now. Probably a year ago, not so much. So these kind of situations arise, and thank you, Andras, for having us here. But this indicates that we work differently. We communicate differently, and since we communicate differently, we can channel these resources. So, like Hannes said, there's a shortage maybe in Graz or Wien or in Belgium maybe, and we can maybe connect the dots as agencies and find the correct people for the correct job. Because I think freelancing didn't change that much. If you work through an agency as a contractor or whatever, you are, as a client, you're really buying trust, because you won't have the same trust level with an established agency than with you will normally have with a freelancer. It's always a risk, even if you're a perfect, great freelancer. So I think that's a good possibility for us to connect people, connect the dots as agencies, and work more with people who think they want to be freelancers, but really they want to work on great projects, and maybe we can build these bridges across countries from now on.
You mean that basically freelancers, they have more opportunity to connect to the agencies than directly to the clients, if I understand properly what you are saying.
Yes, basically so. Yeah, I think that the large clients and the biggest projects won't necessarily hire freelancers just because the COVID happened. They will still rely on established companies and brands, and we probably have to think forward with that. And since we also can reach each other, like in this conversation, and we can reach probably more clients in the future, because the sales, not just the design, how we design, but the sales process and the sales procedure may be probably slower, but will change, and we will be able to reach out more to more people after this.
Okay. So any final thought? Like, let's make a round, starting like, as I see, starting from Hannes, Kathleen, Thomas, and Edward. Like one final thought, and we can close our roundtable for today. Hopefully, there will be another occasion where we can gather, maybe in public again. But let's close this for today. So, Hannes, the word is yours.
My last statement: rethink everything.
Okay. Thank you, Kathleen.
We're in the business of people, so we should learn from this individual and group behavior. So, important.
Thank you. Thomas?
Think positive as a designer and embrace uncertainty, because it's not the COVID, it's uncertainty that people are afraid of. And if you address that as a problem solver as a designer, then you will be in a good place.
Okay, like closing sentence. This is the last one.
I just suddenly thought, maybe think of UX as less of more of a kind of an organizational behavior, a way of being, because that will help you in the future. Because a lot of organizations are more like machines, and they keep just going in the way they go, and they can't change, and they need to become more like an organism that can learn and alter. So maybe think of UX more like a way of behaving as an organization, rather than necessarily thinking it as just a UI outputting system, basically.
Okay. So thank you for all, and thank you for the audience also coming for today. And I give back the word to Arthur.
Okay, thank you everyone. It was great to listen to discussion. Please don't turn off your camera because I don't have. So leave for a while. Okay, I hope the audience enjoyed it as well. Thank you for all for coming. We would appreciate if you could fill out our survey. We will post the link in the chat, or you can scan the QR code on the screen. You can send us your valuable opinion on what you liked, what you didn't like, and what could be improved. We are constantly trying to make our events better, so your opinion would be appreciated. And now you are welcome to join us for an informal afternoon chat on our Your Tribe channel. It's a really clever tool. You just click on the link, take a quick picture, and you can find yourself in a virtual room with everyone else. Then you can walk around by clicking with your mouse and talk to whoever you get close to. It can be a single person or a group. Please join if you would like to network more with us. And thank you again for coming, and hope to see you soon or us on Your Tribe. Have a good afternoon.